Okay, 2003 Mercedes-Benz CLK 320. Going to be changing out the motor mounts tonight. In a second here, I'm actually going to start the car and answer the question, do I have bad motor mounts? Okay, so you're wondering if your motor mounts might be bad. I've got the car running, I've got it in drive, foot on the brake, press the accelerator. Motor should not be doing that. That's when you know you have a bad motor mount. So if you're still with me, you have in fact figured out that you do have bad engine motor mounts. Before we get into the parts, I want to go ahead and stress one thing. No pieces of 2x4, no concrete blocks. Get yourself a set of jack stands and a jack. Don't be an idiot. If you need proof as to what could possibly happen to you, go ahead and Google it. There are videos of guys who have squashed themselves under their cars. They look like rolls of toothpaste. So don't be stupid, hotshot. I got this set at Advance Auto Parts for 39 bucks. These are lifesavers right here. 40 bucks. Number 2, wheel chocks. Both front and back. Alright? Don't be an idiot. This is an engine mount. Unfortunately made in China, but you know, that's another subject altogether. You can follow me on Facebook as far as that's concerned. Anyway, this is what your motor mount's going to look like. It's got the tab on the top, lines up with the slot on the engine itself. Pretty simple looking piece. I've got 2 of these. Alright, before we get to the underbelly of the car, we've got a couple things to take care of up top. One is to get the decorative shroud out of the way. And that's simple. It's just got 4 little tension clips that hold it in. I got a little crack in that one, but who cares? So you just pull straight up. And it pops out. And out of the way. Number 2. This is very important as well. This radiator hose is held in by this little clip. You'll want to pull that loose and get it out of the way because you're going to be lifting the engine and you don't want that hanging onto the rad hose. So we're going to pull it up and out of the way of that clip. Okay, next order of business is to remove the negative battery cable. There's negative, there's positive. My battery happens to be in the trunk. We're actually going to be removing a ground line from the body chassis. So anytime you're going to be working on the car, really, you can always accidentally touch positive or negative wires underneath the car. So it's just safe to go ahead and remove the negative battery cable. Okay, next we get rid of the air box. Now you're going to notice that these clips come off really easily for me. That's because I already pre-loosened everything. So you have to wait for my dumb ass to get everything out of the way. You got one single clip right here. These 2 guys right here, they're not going to come off as easily for you. But nonetheless, clip there, clip there, clip there. Unhook the radiator overflow hose from this little cradle right here. And this pulls straight out. Reveals the air box. Take the air filter out. Replace this guy. Then you've got this small fresh air inductor that's right here. Goes right into the unit here. Again, these parts aren't going to come apart this easily for you. You'll have to wiggle and jiggle them apart. Down at the bottom of the tank itself, you've got 2 tension clips that hold it in place. This one, you got to be a little brave go ahead and pull them straight up. And that'll loosen those guys up. And from the back. There's 3 of them total. And then the whole box itself lifts out. That gives you all this little extra space to get into where the motor mount is in the back. Okay, the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving the AC compressor. Not disconnecting it, just moving it so that we can get to the motor mount on the driver's side. So the one thing that we have to do is we have to release the tensioner, which is that guy right in the center there, and the belt tensioner, and loosen it up so that we can loosen the belt up. I've actually got a new one hanging up, ready to change this out. You're going to go just below and toward the passenger side of the vehicle to get to the 17mm bolt that will relieve the tension on the belt pulley system itself. You'll see that that relieves the tension right there for the belt. Okay, as you can see, I've got the tension off the belt via the belt tensioner right there. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this shroud from underneath the motor. And I've got these guys right here. 8mm. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then clips on the side. All right, the engine shroud is off. There's that guy right there. Looks like I need a little cleaning. Need to do a little cleaning underneath here. But anyway, there, kids, is engine mount number 1 and engine mount number 2. Although you might not be able to see that one. Yeah, there it is. That's that guy right there. First, we've got a bolt that's inside right there. That's supposed to be 13mm. Next, after that, we have to get to the bottom of the AC compressor. We got the 1 bolt right there, and then 1 at the back, actually 2 at the back. We're going to be loosening up this guy right here. This is the ground strap for the engine. Then we're going to be getting to these bolts here for the AC compressor. Now remember, we're not going to be unhooking the AC compressor. It's got flexible hoses on it, so it's actually going to allow us to move it forward so that we can get that guy out of there. Okay, again, to save time, I've already loosened everything up. Cap of the washer fluid reservoir, level sensor, pops right off. 10mm bolt, a little plastic nut rather. And then these 2 guys have small clamps on the back side that you have to pull loose to get the tank out so that you can get to, this will give you a little bit more room for your hands. Okay, next we're going for the ground width on the body chassis. That is a 13mm socket. Now we're going to take off the bolts to loosen up and move the AC compressor forward. There is 1 here at the back of the unit, here, And then your final bolt is right here. Okay, now we've got all 3 bolts removed from the AC compressor. As you can see, hanging a little loose. That's just so we can slide it forward so we can get to the motor mount, which is right behind it. That's that round guy that you see right there at the end of my finger. Now we've got a bolt that's on top of it. We're going to take that out in just a second. Okay, now as you can see here, I've got my floor jack, piece of 2x4. It's about 8 inches long. That's to spread the weight evenly at the bottom of my oil pan. You of course don't want to damage your oil sump, so you want to spread that weight out evenly across the bottom of the motor. Because now we're going to lift up one side. We'll be lifting one side at a time. Now I went ahead and popped it loose. We took the bolt out of the bottom. You can see this motor mount wasn't feeling well at all. As a matter of fact, when I went ahead and started moving it, you can see the thing has completely popped loose. The other bolt that we're going for is actually at the top, just above this rubber right here at the front of my finger. Now with the room that we've created, we're going to try and get this motor mount out of here. Boy, this thing is really cached. Okay, so there's one part of the motor mount. As you can see, this thing was definitely gone. There's the other half, still hooked in. And I got to get that part loose. That's the upper stem of the motor mount itself. Now on the top of this, I don't know if you can see my wrench that's sitting up there. This is a 5/8 bolt that's holding the top half, or what's left of it, onto the engine block arm. Okay, so here's one of the more difficult parts of this job. As one of my contemporaries who also posted a video about this said, this is a fiddly job. So it's a lot of little tight spaces, a lot of hard spots to get to. But nonetheless, the best way to access the top bolt for the top bolt that goes into the motor mount, your easiest way is to go just above this wrapped AC line, and you actually have to go underneath first, face the end of the ratchet, the handle end of the ratchet toward the front of the car, put it onto the bolt, come back up and around, and you can actually reach right in here and pull on the ratchet itself to loosen it up. On the top of the motor mount, you'll actually find a little notch. Lines up underneath with that notch that's right there. This tab lines up with that guy right there. So now we're going to put the new motor mount in. Alright, so here is your heat shield. The heat shield goes in between the motor mount and the motor. Now, another video that I'd watched, the guy didn't put this back on. I always recommend heat shields, especially if you're dealing with something that has rubber on it. It'll last a lot longer for you. The motor mounts I had did last 127,000 miles. So that tells me that this heat shield should be in place. Now, this little notch that you see right here, There's a notch up at the top of this bracket as well, and you'll want to line up that notch with the small flange that you see, that you'll feel rather, sticking out of the top. And then we're back to the lower mounting bolt for the motor mount. And so voila, you can see the new motor mount in place, heat shield installed, everything's tightened in, about 40 foot-pounds on torque wrench, or about half of what you would put to put a lug wrench, or to put a lug on a tire. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and reattach the 3 mounting bolts for the AC compressor. I'm going to put this line bracket back on here for this guy. Then we're going to put our ground back on to the chassis. Okay, driver's side is done. Got the worst part of it out of the way. We go on to the easier one. Look at that access. And there, of course, is our motor mount right there. So this is a much easier side. As you can see, there's no AC compressor in the way. The alternator's up toward the front. Got plenty of clearance here to get that bad boy out of there. This side's going to be a lot easier. Going to clean up the heat shield like I did on the last one, because you might as well, if you're going to be pulling these things apart, you might as well clean it before you put it back together. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the bottom bolt first, right inside this little access hole right here. Then we're going to get to the top one, and this one will go pretty darn quick. Okay, number 2 was not as easy as I thought, or the passenger side. It's a bit of a bear to get out on that side. I would definitely suggest that you get some electric or some pneumatic ratchets and closed-end wrenches for this one. This one was definitely a nightmare to get to. The heat shield was in your way, but here it is. There's the old one. Compare it to the new one, and you can see a little bit of difference in height. And anyway, so new one's about to go in. All right, numbskulls. In conclusion, the motor mount change out on the 2003 Mercedes-Benz CLK 320. The driver's side was definitely a lot easier, even though there were more items in the way. We had to move the AC compressor, the windshield washer reservoir, and the grounding strap that goes to the body chassis. But there was a lot more hand room on that side to actually get the ratchet in to loosen up the old one. The passenger side, however, a lot less things in the way. Didn't actually have to take out the alternator, but there was very little room for my hands. So moving a ratchet around, trying to break loose that bolt after 127,000 miles was a bit of a nightmare. But overall, I saved myself 500 bucks. The mechanic wanted 500 bucks. That was the lowest price that I got. He barked about having to remove the exhaust headers, which I'm sure would make it easier to get it out, but it also makes it a lot more expensive. I did this on the ground with jack stands. Most certainly would have been a lot easier with a lift, but I don't have them. Got to do what you got to do. So in conclusion, motor mount change out on the CLK 320 is about a 4 manual labor and about a 6 in terms of complication. But that's 500 bucks, man. Dark Side Garage.